Coming to you from
Hey.
all over this great country, starting off here in Southwest Wyoming, I am Bradlee W. Skinner.
And I am Frank Korneski from Southern New Jersey.
And I am Darrin Pepper coming to you from the worldwide headquarters of Road to Awesome right here in beautiful, sunny northern Colorado here in the mountains. It's a beautiful day, gentlemen. It is great to see you both.
It's good to be here. I realize it's a little dark in my room here, and so I hope it doesn't look like I'm hiding out in some cave, although the beard does still give that motif a bit. But
yeah, there's kind of like this murder movie kind of, ambiance going on there. So yeah, Bradlee, how was
the beard will be gone.
Is it going away? It's going to be going away. Wow.
It will be.
Nice. So before we jump in with our guest, Bradlee, I got to ask, because I'm getting ready to head there at the end of the week. I know you were just at Steve Wolf's Wild Heart Teacher Retreat. How was it, man? What was the experience like?
Man, it was exactly what I needed. So as Darrin has mentioned, the Wild Heart Teacher Retreat takes place up in Divide, Colorado, way up in the mountains. Woo, I should have brought some oxygen. We were up there about 9,500 feet. Just over on the west side of Pikes Peak. It was wonderful. We had some great speakers. We got to hang out with some amazing individuals. Got to do some karaoke. Even, man, it was good stuff. Met some amazing educators. The venue is just beautiful. We're up at John Wesley Ranch. Man, it was, and the reason that it's called a retreat. And it's not a conference. We weren't there for a conference. It was a retreat. It was to just reinvigorate, revitalize, and relax. And with other like-minded educators that understood that, you know what, this year's been tough. It's been a difficult year. And we don't need to hide from it. We don't need to push it down and ignore the fact that it was a difficult year. We can embrace it and say, look, it was tough, but guess what? We made it. We did it. We did what was best for kids, and we helped students learn, and we kept them safe. And just to be able to then to have that time to relax and realize what we've been able to accomplish this year, man, it was awesome. I absolutely loved it. It was great. I highly recommend it. Check it out on Facebook. You can find them, Wild Heart Teachers. Man, it was awesome. I really loved it.
I'm really excited to go this week. I was hoping to be able to go. Steve's asked me to come and help out when I can. I really wanted to come and be there, obviously, for the one you were at, and the one he had another one that just started today. He's got one that starts on Monday. You see Eric Lowe's just made a comment about that. He's going to be at that one. And then I think there's 3 or 4 more after that. But yeah, absolutely. Just an opportunity for educators to come and just pull the pressure relief valve and just go and enjoy. Just go and enjoy. I heard Chase Chatfield last night say he caught a fish for the first time in his life.
It was, dude, I'm hooked on fly fishing now. It was so peaceful. It was so relaxing. It was cathartic, actually. Man, I'm making sure I'm going to pick up a rod and reel next week because I'm going to keep doing that. It was just the fact of losing track of time. I think there was one day where I was like, all right, is it 4 o'clock? Are we closer to 6? And it was actually like 1:10. Just the concept of time it just kind of disappeared, and it was just wonderful. It was exactly what we needed.
That's outstanding. That is outstanding.
And
so
to be able to do some karaoke with Kevin Honeycutt, how do you not enjoy that? That was awesome.
he is one of the greatest. He really is. So,
we had a blast.
Yeah, wonderful. Well, hey, let's get our guest in here. We've got Rob Breyer joining us today from North Carolina. Rob is the author of the new book published by Road to Awesome, Taking the Leap, a field guide for aspiring school leaders. Rob, welcome to the Empower Half Hour, man.
Hey, it's exciting to be here. Thank you so much for having me on.
Well, thank you for the work that you've done. We know there's a lot of changes obviously happening in education in the world out there today. And as we've talked on this show, one of those unfortunate changes are people leaving education field. And even though as tragic as that is, it is opening up opportunities for those individuals who may have not thought about going into educational leadership before to, as you said, take that leap. So let's first tell us a little bit about the motivation behind the book, and what are some of those key things that you've been able to share in that wisdom of what people should be doing if they're considering that option?
Well, for me, like honestly, where it came from was working with some aspiring leaders, and they are getting so down on themselves because they don't understand the process. They don't understand what it takes and what it even looks like to go into those interview processes. What is a screener? What does first round look like? What's second round? What do you say when you get in front of the superintendent? In fact, one of the guys I was just coaching, that was his thing. He's made it to the superintendent level like 3 times. And he's like, I can't land the job. And it's understanding how it works and how the process works and how to really sell yourself. As we started working through some of the questions, I noticed like he would get caught up in the weeds. He'd be trying to tell me, like if I asked him a question about PBIS, he'd be telling me everything he knows about PBIS. And I was like, whoa, you got to stop here. Like they already know what PBIS is. They want to hear, what is your experience with PBIS? How did you implement it? What was the impact it had on the school? And what did your leadership bring to those people to make it even better? And that's what they really want to hear. And so, it's helping guide people, because you go through that college program and you get you're going to get your administration degree, and you're so excited. Like the world is right there, man. It's your oyster, and you're so excited about it. And then you get out and you're on your own. There's nobody there to help you along. There's nobody there to coach you and to explain how this process works. And so that's the reason I started writing this book, is I wanted people to be able to have something there that's going to be that companion guide that's going to help them understand, what questions do I need to be asking? Who do I need to be talking to? What do I need to do to actually prepare so I'm successful in these interviews? And I wanted to answer that question of, why am I not being picked for this job? And what does that mean? Am I not good enough? And I really wanted to make sure I was hitting on those topics. So that was really the inspiration behind doing it.
That's awesome. Those are some great questions. I'm sure a lot of people have asked themselves repeatedly.
Well, and for me, like I remember, like I was lucky. So North Carolina had what we called the St. Hills Leadership Academy, and it was through a grant that they got, and they took a cadre of aspiring leaders who were successful in the classroom, and then really gave them a 1 year of just super intensive internship. I mean, I shadowed a principal for a whole year. Everything that she did, I was right there next to her. It didn't matter if it was personnel. It didn't matter if it was a board meeting. Like that was my job, was to be right next to her. I learned everything I could about administration by actually doing it. And it was a really neat experience. And they prepped me. We had to do different scenarios where we would walk in, like you would walk into class on a Wednesday, and they would just say, okay, here's your assignment. You all sit down and start working on this. You're going to start evaluating this data and put a project together. And then they start pulling you out of the room one by one. You had no idea what was happening when you got pulled out, but they would walk you into another room. The room I walked into, there was a Hispanic woman sitting in there just crying, hysterically crying. And I'm looking and I'm like, okay. And they said, she's upset. Figure out what the problem is and how you can help her. So I introduced myself, and then she started speaking Spanish to me. And I'm like, okay. So I knew enough Spanish to say, okay, hold on a second. Let me ask for help. I said, hey, I need somebody to translate for me. Nobody in the school speaks Spanish. You're on your own. And so I had to work with this lady and get her consoled and figure out what her problem was. And we, just using different tactics, all they wanted to see is, how do I react under pressure? How do I handle a situation that really is out of my control? And they did this to us all the time when we walked in. There is no better preparation than actually doing that type of work to walk in. And when they ask you in an interview, like, what's your experience with this? I had a full, toolbox full of ideas and things that I have done in my past that I was easily able to get my first AP job. But then it came to the principal job. And I went to 9 different interviews, and some I made it to the finals, some I made it to just the first round, and I just kept getting knocked down. And I would sit with the superintendent and say, hey, listen, you are going to be an amazing principal. He's like, it's just not your time yet. Or this just wasn't the right fit for you. And it's so easy, you know, like I understand what these young kids are going through who are trying to get into administration. Like you get defeated, you get beat up. It's like, I went through all this work to get here and I can't get into the seat. What do I need to do? And I took some time to work with one of my mentors, and they really helped guide me along and show me some of the areas I was making a mistake. And I remember a couple years back, you know, I've been sitting in my principal seat now for 5 years. And I remember looking back, and I've got to know these different principals in my district, and they're all these different schools. And they were right. I wasn't the right fit for those schools. I'm looking at the things that these principals are doing and the things that they're reacting to, and they were the right fit. They were the perfect person to go in and deal with that job and handle that school the way it needed to be handled. And now that I look back and I reflect, I'm like, yeah, I really wasn't the right person for that job. And it's understanding that there's a bigger picture that you might not be able to see. And that's the job of the superintendent. They're looking at that. They have this view of what they need, what this school really needs. And if you don't fit it perfectly, then, you know, you might not be the right fit. And it's not because you're not good enough. It's just because you're not the right person for that school at that moment. But you got to keep going. You can't quit on it. And that's what I find that happens to a lot of aspiring leaders is they get defeated and they call it quits and they stay in the classroom because it's easy.
Good point.
I think
So one more question that I wanted to ask, and this will go, so Darrin and Frank also some feedback for this. Because we have so often we're talking about aspiring leaders, and they're the ones on that side of the table. So let's look at it from the other side. When you do have that person that's interviewing for that job, and as you said, we often hear those phrases like, you're going to make a great principal someday, or you're just not the right fit, or whatever, that sometimes it's genuine, but other times they're just saying it. So when they're just saying it, what are they really saying to that candidate without saying it? Does that make sense? Because I've wondered that, and I know others have as well.
I think this is a great question for the superintendent.
Well played, Rob. Well played. I'll be honest with you. I mean, I never made a statement like that if I didn't believe it was true. I think when it is said, obviously in the moment you can't do that, but you've got to question that person's leadership. You know, they're pushing out platitudes because they don't have the guts to say, you know, what they should say, which, you know, if they don't think they're ever going to be a good administrator, you're not going to say that. But, you know, certainly you go back to what Rob just said, and that's about fit, you know, and, you know, saying that, saying, I think you're going to be a great administrator someday. You know, yeah, you want to encourage people, but I think when you say that, you better be genuine. And if you're saying it just to push platitudes, then you're not genuine in that moment, and you're probably not genuine as a leader either. So I guess I don't know if that answers your question, Bradlee, other than I guess for me to say those who say that when they're not genuine probably aren't very good leaders, and probably not somebody you wanted to work with anyway.
It's a great point. I think it's one of those things where, as Rob, as you mentioned, that it's easy to get discouraged, especially if you have been going through multiple interviews and you've been trying and you're doing those things that you think are best practices, but yet it's just not that right fit. And I had it described to me one time as, you know, maybe you've got that Toyota Corolla and you're just not the right key to drive that car. It doesn't mean that the key that you have doesn't start a Rolls Royce.
Absolutely.
You just you have to find that right fit. And I think that's a big thing. And as long as I think as school leaders, if we're being upfront and honest about that, is far more important than trying to save somebody's feelings. Sometimes, yeah, I get it. Your feelings might be hurt in the short term, but it's in that long run. If I had somebody that just told me, you know what, you're not a great candidate for this position, and then explain to me why, I would leave, and maybe it might take a week or two, but I'm going to feel so much better about it than if they're just giving me the, you know, as Darrin said, those platitudes of, oh, you'll be great someday, and not actually giving me anything that's going to help me improve.
Absolutely. I agree with that. And, you know, and that's one thing as a principal I try to do. So when I have interviews, I call each person back and I'll give them some feedback. And it might just be quick feedback, or maybe I'll give them suggestions of things that I think they should try in their next round of interviews. But it's so important to me to make sure that they're hearing some type of feedback, because everybody wants to know why was I not the right person for this job? And I don't care if it's for a TA in a classroom. I don't care if it's for hiring a data manager to sit out front and do a receptionist job. You got to take time to give people feedback. Like, if people are going to get better, they need to know, okay, what did I miss? What was not right? And sometimes they were perfect, but like, for example, like I was hiring a data manager, and I needed somebody who had not just a personality to sit out front and be a receptionist, but also was able to be very disciplined and had a strong technology background. And I had 6 or 7 amazing people who we interviewed, and all were wonderful, friendly people who would have been great receptionists. But the person who ended up getting it, she took a look at our system that we use for data management. And even though she's never used it, in 15 minutes, she was able to answer the different questions and gave us a rundown of everything that she'd be able to do and the things that she would have questions on. And bam, that was it for me. So when I gave my feedback to the other candidates, it was, you really need to learn the system, find opportunities, talk to your principals at your schools, take some time to really understand Excel. But I made sure to give them some type of critical feedback that's going to help them get better. So when they walk into that next interview, they're going to nail that job.
That's awesome.
I wish every principal did that. And I think that's so important. And I get defeated if I go for a principal interview and I call and I want to know, hey, what kind of feedback can you give me? Like, can you just give me 5 minutes and just kind of give me some feedback? What could I do better? What did I miss? Like, what really kind of threw you off about me leading the school? And a lot of times you won't get any feedback. So I can understand where these aspiring leaders can feel defeated, because they're feeling like people don't want to take the time to really sit and talk with them and really give them that feedback. And that's where I encourage people, like, if you're struggling, if you're having a hard time, find a coach, find a mentor, find somebody that's going to be willing to take the time and really help you along.
It's a great point. And I concur, because I've made sure that I've surrounded myself with good mentors that help me improve.
Absolutely. And I think the key is making sure that they're not yes people. Finding that group of people who are willing to give you that tough feedback. Like, hey, like, I hear what you're saying, but man, that's not how you want to go into this interview, or that's not how you want to present yourself. Like, let's go back and rework this. I don't need people who are going to tell me, oh yeah, you're doing an awesome job. Oh, you're going to be amazing. I need people who are going to give me real feedback. And even when I'm hiring teachers, I don't want people necessarily who are going to come back to me and just always be like, oh, you're the greatest principal I ever had. I like people that are going to push back, because I can't get better if I'm just always sitting there in a comfortable zone and being like, okay, yeah, I got this, and we're just cruising right along. I like to be uncomfortable at times so I can keep getting better.
Awesome. Frank, go ahead. You had a question or a comment?
Yeah, I did. What I've seen over the years is that 2 points that I wanted to make is that with you mentioned at the top of the show, Bradlee, is that there's so many people that either wanted to go into education and then didn't pull the trigger because of some adverse things going on around the world, or they get frustrated in the first couple of years and they never make it to a tenure position because they don't feel like it's for them. And so what that has done, at least in our state of New Jersey, is that they had to 10 years ago, 15 years ago, you had to have 5 years experience as a teacher in the classroom before you could get your administrative permanent certificate. They had to relax that because they were not getting enough candidates in the administrative positions. So what I've seen is that the administration positions are being placed with younger and younger candidates. I'm not saying that's good, bad, or indifferent, but it's just a shift in what we were used to. Another thing I've seen is that in interviews, is that interviews that I've gone in, or interviews that I've been a part of, is that people are looking for a specific type of a person, and they have a rubric. It's a 10-part rubric, but the candidates aren't shown that rubric, so they don't know exactly the job that they're applying for. Yeah, I'm applying for a principalship or assistant principal or supervisor, etc., but not fully understanding what that means in that particular school or that particular district. So that's the barrier that you have to overcome, that you don't even, it's an invisible barrier, and you don't even know anything about it. So, well, look, you only scored this number on the rubric, but wait a minute, there's a rubric? I never even knew what the rubric was. So Why not? Why don't you know what that rubric is? And if I don't qualify, then why am I even being interviewed? So there's a lot going on, that Rob has addressed in his book that really the candidates don't know about. So they're all gung ho, they're totally prepared in their mind, and then boom, they feel like they didn't meet the standard because they didn't know what the standard was.
But at the same time, you're at the interview.
Yeah.
I think we lose faith sometimes in our own abilities when we're only looking at that end product. I didn't get the job. I must not have been good enough. But no, you were at the interview. You are good enough, or else you wouldn't have been there in the first place. It may not have been the right fit. We've said that before, but you were a qualified candidate, or else you wouldn't have been in the room to begin with. And so many times it's more about the school. It's about the culture or the climate than it is about you as an individual. And yes, there's been times where I've had many interviews where I know I wasn't the right fit. I think I was the best candidate, but I wasn't the right candidate. And I think that's far more important, that when we're hiring any position, it's not always about finding the best on paper. It's about finding the right one that's going to make a difference for your entire school.
I love that point.
Yeah, I think that's critical. I mean, it's certain people are going to fit in certain environments a little bit better than in others. There are people who, I'll take my situation as an example. Extremely rural Colorado. Somebody who might be an amazing teacher in a real dense urban population. And Rob, this is probably true for you, where you're in a very rural area in North Carolina too, where a really strong teacher in an urban environment may come into the rural environment or flip it over in the other direction. And that's just not the right fit. I mean, there's a lot to be said for, being not just a fit in the school, but a fit in the community, a fit, within the entire staff. And Rob, you addressed this really, really well in the book. And the point I want to get to, because already, like we always say, the fastest half hour of your week is already almost gone. In the book, this is not just Rob saying, here's what you got to do. You brought in, I don't even remember how many, but you brought in a ton of different experts. So maybe speak to that a little bit about some of those individuals who brought in, some of those vignette pieces for the book and how you pulled that all together.
So I reached out to a bunch of people who came from different backgrounds. I didn't just want principals and superintendents to give feedback. I went out and found some aspiring school leaders, a couple teachers who, what are they looking for from teachers, like when they sit on those interview panels. I tried to really get a very diverse and very unique background. I wanted people who were going to give you insights from working in huge urban schools to working in small rural schools, and how their interview processes went and things that they learned along the way. Because exactly what Darrin said, I didn't want it to be, well, this is Rob sitting here giving you all this advice and coaching you along. I wanted you to hear from other people who I didn't coach and I didn't work with. And these are people from all over the country giving this feedback, and the things that they were saying, it just aligned beautifully, where it was really easy when it came time to insert these vignettes into the book. And it was amazing sitting down with Darrin as we started placing these, because they fit in perfectly. And it's like, these people didn't read anything I wrote before we did the vignettes. These were people just raw feedback. I gave them the topics. They picked a topic they wanted to write about, and they submitted them. And then we were able to go insert them into the book. And I think they turned out really well. And I mean, you got Erica Garcia, who I loved her stuff. And she was an aspiring school leader. And shortly after the book published, like 2 weeks after the book published, she was named the principal of an elementary school. And I just thought that was like the coolest thing. And her feedback was just so real and just so upfront. And then you have like Stephen Weber, who is down in Arkansas, and he gave this he's just a wealth of knowledge when it comes to interviewing. And honestly, he was one of those guys. He used to live here in North Carolina. And I would reach out to Stephen all the time, and I'd be like, Stephen, like, what do I do here? Like, give me some feedback. Like, it was having that network. And it was so funny because a lot of the people I reached out to, I have never met. I don't know, half the people I reached out to, I don't even know them. And it was really cool to see the connection and the things that we were able to talk about through the vignettes that they wrote and the feedback that they gave me, and have those conversations, because it's going to look different. Whether you're up in New Jersey, whether you're in Wyoming or in Colorado, or you're down here in North Carolina, when you go for an interview, they're going to look a little bit different. But with this book, I really wanted people to understand there's three major parts. You got to analyze, you got to reflect, and you got to prepare. You got to analyze the school. You have to know everything that you can about the school. You also have to know who you are as a leader and why you want to lead. And then you have to understand the reflecting of what are the experiences that I had. How would they apply to this interview process? So you can start developing. I mean, I heard somebody talk about coming into an interview with 5 great stories about your leadership and finding your story that you can share. And then it's preparing, actually working through and understanding what is the questions behind the questions they're asking, and giving people not just interview questions, but really kind of breaking those interview questions down so they can better understand what it is that they want to know and what are some things that they need to think about. When you're in that teacher role, how do I get those experiences that I didn't necessarily get when I was doing my master's program? And who do I need to talk to? So if I want to learn more about EC and how the EC process works, sitting down with the principal, sitting down with your head EC person, having those conversations, taking time and say, hey, would you mind if I sat in on some interviews or some IEPs so I can sit down and really kind of learn more about special education and how that process works? If you want to know about finance, talking to your bookkeeper, talking to the principal, the AP, how do you guys do this? How do you bring in and get feedback from your staff? So the idea was to present them with the questions, but then really give them things to think about. The other part I wanted them to think about was when you walk into an interview, each round has a different audience, and how I answer a question is going to look different. So if I'm walking into an audience of parents, I'm going to answer really, and how am I going to support parents? How am I going to make parents feel like they're part of the school and the school environment? If I'm talking to teachers, how am I going to support teachers? What am I going to do to make sure that they're successful each and every day and doing the best that they can for kids? Then when you walk into a room full of administrators, you have to present yourself even differently then and really make sure. And then when you walk into that superintendent, you need to be prepared. One of the guys I coached, he had the best. He said that wasn't an interview. He's like, that was an interrogation. But that superintendent, when they bring you in, they want to know that not only are you the good fit for the school, because obviously you're there because you are a good fit for that school. They want to make sure you're a good fit for the district. They want to be able to know, like, do you have a future? Are you going to be somebody they can promote up and really grow so that you will fit well in that district? And so, this book, I think, is different in the fact of it's not just giving you ideas. It's really walking you through and giving you strategies and things that you can do to improve. So when you walk into that interview, you have the confidence to answer every question they ask, no matter what the format looks like. You're ready to go.
Nice. Awesome. Well, that brings us at an end here. When we finish up, we're going to make sure that we get how people can follow you, how they can contact you, they can get their book. But first, we're going to jump into our final thought.
Dun, dun, dun.
And I think I guess we're going to start with me. So
There we go.
Make it short and sweet. I want to key in on something that Rob said about don't surround yourself with yes men. That's not going to help you in building your leadership skills at all. So take this as my final thought today, is that you can either surround yourself with people who will tell you what you want to hear, or you can surround yourself with people who will tell you what you need to hear. One's going to make you feel good. The other's going to actually make you better.
Rob, first of all, thanks for coming on the Empower Half Hour, your fastest half hour of the week. A lot of great stuff today. I think one of the things I just want to emphasize is that we talked about interviews and going on interviews. The more you go on, the better you get at it, and you'll see just how diversified they are. So do it. Don't ever have that barrier. Oh, I'm not going to get the job, so I won't apply, so I won't go on the interview. That's crazy. Go on as many interviews as you can, especially when you're trying to make it to thanks, Eric. Go Sixers. To that leadership position. And don't forget, a position isn't leadership. So make sure that you put that all together in your package. Peace and love always win. And hopefully the Sixers do too.
I guess for my final thoughts, it's, right now I'm looking over there at Dr. R, and I'm thinking, I grew up in Philadelphia, outside of Philadelphia, in Lansdale, Pennsylvania. So, and I'm just not
Mayor of Easttown.
I love the Sixers, and I'm excited for them. So go Sixers. I'm hoping this happens for them, but I'm also a realist. So, let's see what happens. But honestly,
Yeah.
I think my feedback for people tonight is really take time. If you're struggling through the interview process, if you are, having a hard time figuring out this path and this journey, reach out, find a mentor, find another leader that you can reach out to, get some feedback, go through interview questions with them, ask them questions of, what are you looking for when you're interviewing? What is it that makes a candidate stand out to you? But find people that are willing to help. And if that means finding yourself a coach, it's worth the investment to get a coach that's going to help you understand and really work with you step by step to make sure you're successful and you get to where you want to go.
All right. And I am batting cleanup tonight. I love that. It's a great place to be. I'm going to go in a little bit different direction tonight for my final thought. I'm going to tell you that I'm really super excited about this book, and not because it's published by RTA, but because if it wasn't clear to you tonight, it is truly what Rob is passionate about. And, I'm asked quite frequently. I got an email today from somebody, about, hey, Darrin, can I talk to you about an idea I have for a book? Whether it's a book or another step in your journey or whatever it might be, if you're clear about what you're passionate about, if you just know this is what really fires me up, then you are on the right path. And Rob, my friend, you are absolutely on that path. You are, as Bradlee has said for years, it's always good to pick up hitchhikers on the road to awesome. And you, my friend, have been picked up as a hitchhiker on our road to awesome. So thank you so much for being here tonight. Go Sixers. Tomorrow night, go Nuggets. Neither one of them will be in the finals, but what a dream it would be if they could both be there.
So, Rob, tell everybody how they can follow you, how can they reach you, and how do they get their hands on your book?
Sure. You can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at RB Leads, and it's right here up on my screen. You can get that book. It's called Taking the Leap, a field guide for aspiring school leaders, and it's out there on Amazon. I believe it's also on Barnes & Nobles. You can also get a Kindle version, or you can go to my website, which is just rbleads.net. And you can get a copy, and I'll gladly autograph a book if you like it. You can order yourself a book right on my website. And if you ever want coaching or anything like that, email me at robertfbreyer@gmail.com.
There you have it, ladies and gentlemen. So go check it out. Get your hands on that book. And whether you are, even if you are looking at taking that leap right now within this next school year, or it might just be something that you're considering, it's going to help you. Even if you want to be a better leader, it's going to make you a better teacher. So get your hands on that book. You won't regret it.
Have a road to awesome week.
Thank you guys for having me on. I appreciate it.
Yep. We'll see you next time here on the Empower Half Hour.